Welcome to the Global Power Tour podcast, where we are highlighting entrepreneurs and what they're doing in their businesses, how they do it, and how they became successful. This is a conversation between me and another entrepreneur so that you can pick up tips, takeaways that you can implement in your business and in your life right now. So, hello, Dr. Wendy.
Hello there, Christy Jackson Muhammad. How are you?
I am wonderful. So
Good.
I want some of the ladies too who aren't familiar with you to know who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Oh, wow. That's an easy question and a very hard question at the same time. So, like so many women, extremely multidimensional, multifaceted. But right now, I'm kind of like in the second stage of my life, is what I like to call it, and looking at possibly retiring in maybe 3 or 4 years. And I've had my business probably going on maybe 17 years now, maybe 20, depending upon really kind of just, taking off with it and focusing on it more in the last 10 and changing what I was offering my clients. So that keeps me super busy. I'm also a vice president at a university in South Georgia. So I do a lot, a parent of two young adults. And so, yeah, again, multifaceted, multidimensional, but enjoying life, late 50s, and just trying to make the most of it. And really love what I do in terms of just impacting others and helping them to develop their careers.
So if I were to run into you in the airport, okay, and we are, of course, are in, the Amex lounge. And
Of course.
of course, if I were to run into you in the Amex lounge and I had just 5 minutes to talk with you, we had 5 minutes to talk, what would you tell me is what you do?
So as it relates to my business W-2 communications, my goal is to assist my clients, whether they are entry level or whether they're all the way in the C-suite, to develop their executive presence, to help them define their career path, to help map that out, and to help them understand that it is a holistic journey. And they are not defined solely by their career, their profession, but there's some other elements that need to be included in that holistic process so that they can have a fulfilling and enriching career.
So what is an executive presence? Break that down.
Yeah, so executive presence is a compilation of 3 factors. Number 1, it is going to be your emotional intelligence. It is going to be your communication presence, and it's going to be your physical aesthetic, how you show up in terms of your attire, your physical demeanor, how you engage and command or blend into the room. Those are the 3 elements that make up executive presence. And oftentimes people get caught on that first word, executive. Well, I'm not interested in going into the executive ranks. But whatever it is that you do, you want to be a standout in that field. You want to make a difference. You want to be a great contributor. And so in order for that to happen, you need to show up in a way that allows you to be believed, that to be convincing that you are the best that you are attempting to do.
So tell me this. I feel like, I guess I'm a millennial, barely. Like on the cusp.
Hold on to it.
Hold on. We're different. And I'm not in corporate, but I hear, I read, I see, and it seems like millennials, and then behind the millennials, younger than the millennials, we feel like we should be able to go into corporate and give whatever presentation we want to give. And you need to accept me the way that I am. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I have a lot of clients who I hear that very same thing, just particularly those that are just graduating from college and, accept me as I am. And the reality is we don't live in that world. That's not how our society is built. Much of it is built on relationships and how people connect and engage with us. And we know we have 2 minutes that, because everything is instantaneously in the society. So you have less than 2 minutes that people are making a decision as to whether they want to go further with Christy Jackson Muhammad. She said enough or I saw enough, I heard enough that made me want to say, I would like to get to know her a little bit more, learn more about what it is that she's offering, or yeah, I'm done. And so we know that that's not fair, but that's a reality. So in that short window of time, we have to represent the best of ourselves because we are trying to move to the next. So I tell people all the time, I don't want you to stop being your authentic self, but there are some fundamentals, some staples that we all must possess. So I'm not saying change your hairstyle, your texture, whatever that is that makes you feel comfortable, come as your true and authentic self. But with that, there are some things that you should absolutely present in a way that is going to be aesthetically pleasing to the audience. So, of course, we don't want to show up with a disheveled look or soiled clothes or things that, or just show up with a t-shirt. I give the example of Cardi B and Mark Zuckerberg when I do presentations on executive presence. And as much as we will see Cardi B in a very eclectic style that she may wear, when she's going to conduct business, you can rest assured. And there's evidence of that. She's going in there with a tailored suit on, or because we want to focus on the message. And Mark Zuckerberg, when he had to speak before Congress, he knew to go don a suit and not his standard t-shirt and jeans.
He took that t-shirt off. As Chris Rock says, you better go to Banana Republic and get you a suit.
Exactly.
I think with the even younger crowd, I have stepsons in the 20s range. They can't put those two things together. Yes, you have the right to look exactly the way you want to look, but people also have the right to judge you. They also have the right to decline to work with you if it doesn't fit what they want. And I don't think that certain groups actually put those two things together that, hey, this may reduce my chances, right?
And they don't always tell you why you're being denied or you weren't given that opportunity. Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest obstacle to people, having this executive presence and matriculating through corporate and having the most success that they can?
Yeah. It's the key is, and I often use this word, normalizing it. It needs to become a behavior, something that you do just as naturally as you would breathe. And it's really not out of the ordinary. And so the emotional intelligence piece is that the element where you are understanding that you're going to be in some difficult moments or situations. And so how you respond to those moments in a very mature way, or in a way that allows you to maintain who you are. Everything may not require a harsh or negative response. And if you do, understand that there's some consequences, or everything doesn't require a reaction. So then coupled with understanding what your triggers may be, and then working on that. And then also having the understanding that maybe this has just run its course, and maybe this particular setting is no longer for me. It doesn't serve me. So having that awareness about who you are emotionally and where you need to develop. The communication piece, we're all working on that. So being a good speaker, presenter, writer, how we're coming across in emails with tone and approach. Yeah, I'm notorious. I don't have a good poker face. So that's what I'm working on. I just left a luncheon. The person was like, fix your face. Yeah. So it's a work in progress. So once you realize that, and then of course your wardrobe, whatever your aesthetic style is, always working on keeping a very polished look. The goal is to have them focus on your message, your product, your deliverable, and how we present ourselves, how we are packaged, then helps to sell, if you will, or make it more palatable.
Got you. it's so many pages, social media pages right now that are
Mhm.
focused on careers and how to matriculate through corporate. And I'm laughing when you said that email communication, because the communication in corporate via email is so different than entrepreneurship. It's so formal. And
Yeah.
it is great to even have someone. I've had someone on my team who knew how to talk corporate. And sometimes I would say, you know what I would respond. Put your spin on that and fix it
Right?
up and send it to the people.
Yes. Yeah. But that's important, Chrissy, that you said that. So it's that having that circle of people around you, your board of directors, that is what I refer to them as. So as we continue to develop our communication skills or whatever it is that we're working on, knowing that I have some people in my space where they can look at this and say, yeah, when you needed a comma right here, or yeah, wrong pronoun. I had someone, I'm working on my book, and I guess it's because of my age, and they said, listen, you have him and her, and that's not the world that we're living in anymore, those pronouns. You have to be considerate of, the broader community, and you refer to their or them. And
Mhm. It's
I
true.
was glad that I had, yeah, that person with that perspective and insight to say, this is where you need to make that correction. So to the point that you just made, you've got someone in your circle who can say, okay, how do you want to say this message? Because they know how you think and they know the audience that it's about to go to.
Oh, she would get, but she could gather professionally.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's an art form too, and I love it. You need to have that. Yeah,
you need, I didn't know I needed it until I had her. And I was like, you know what? Put
yeah.
your spin on it. So let's say I'm that lady in the Amex lounge who just met you, and we've chatted for just about 5 minutes. And I say, okay, I want to go further and work with Dr. Wendy. What would be your first 3 steps in working with like a brand new person? Let's say 0 to 5 years in corporate, and I'm trying to figure out, I want to be a career corporate professional. I'm trying to figure out how to move up. What would you tell me? My first 3 steps.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, we want to look at what you've done in the past. We want to look at your successes and what you would then identify as your challenges. And then once we get those out, we say those aloud. And what I then get the my client to then understand is those challenges, we can overcome those. We can build those into successes. And then I really want us to also celebrate your accomplishments that you've had that have led up to this point. So
Hmm.
once we do that, I'm really big on the traditional tool that so many corporate entities use, which is a SWOT analysis.
Hmm.
And so, what is your ideal career? What's the ideal profession that you want to pursue?
Hmm.
With that, and I'll oftentimes ask them, can you pull up a job profile? So, if you want to be the next VP of communications at Xerox, let's go pull that profile up. With that, we'll apply a SWOT analysis to that. So, based upon what they're looking for in that profile, what are the current strengths that you already have? What are the areas that we need to improve upon that will fall into those weaknesses that we need to address? As it relates to any threats, we're looking at what our current situation, where are we working right now? Is it a possibility where there's a merger that's going on? Or it's a change where they're going to be doing some downsizing and they're asking for individuals to have a master's degree or have a bachelor's degree or a very technical specialized skill set. Those are those threats. And what can we do in terms of putting a timeline to it that we can hopefully get those addressed?
Hmm.
And then, of course, those opportunities. What about those relationships that you have? Are you going to a conference coming up soon where you know there are going to be some key people there that you want to then network with, put your resume in hand, put your bio in hand, and start establishing and then building upon that relationship so that they can too assist you in that process. So then once we start doing that, we'll then kind of develop a map as to how we're going to achieve those goals and put some timelines or put some dates next to them. So
Okay.
that's a start.
Do you work with mostly men or women?
Mostly women, mostly women. Now, when I'm working with men, it's usually I'm doing some training in a group setting. Yeah. You do get those periodic calls where they're like, hey, could you look at my cover letter? Could you look at my resume? But usually women are most forthcoming and very intentional about, I need some assistance with my career development.
I feel like working with men and working with women is so different.
Mm-hmm.
The way that you communicate with them and the way that, you know, they can, like the men want to get directly to the business. The women, you have to build more of a relationship
Yes.
with. I feel like a lot of women are having like some unique issues in corporate.
Mm-hmm.
I spent roughly 5 seconds in corporate, but what I recall is that I've always felt guarded.
Yeah.
I had to keep my guards up. I had a couple of ideas stolen off my whiteboard. So I stopped using my whiteboard. You know, I wanted to turn my computer so no one could pass by and see what I was doing and present my idea in the meeting. Like, what are some of the things that you feel like women are dealing with in corporate that's different than what men deal with?
Yeah, well, they're oftentimes invisible. They're not seen. So as you just shared where some theft was going on of your ideas,
Mhm.
and that also translates into a form of being invisible. You
Mhm.
knew this was mine, but you took it and then you used it as your own. So that is still happening. Then there's also the dynamic of women of color. You know, Zora Neale Hurston talked about being viewed as the mules of the world, doing all of the laborious work, all of it, with no recognition, no honor. Higher ed has just seen 2 African-American women who were presidents collapse. One collapsed on stage, died. The program still went on. And another one, yeah, and another one, you know, suddenly took ill and she just unexpectedly transitioned. So
Really?
yeah. So it's something that is very, very concerning when in those corporate spaces, higher ed spaces, when women are given those opportunities to lead powerful and major organizations. You really need to take a gauge as to what is the condition of the organization itself, because it's that glass cliff ceiling. It is typically on life support. You then inherit that. And so then it becomes Wendy's burden. Wendy is the reason why the finances are, you know, in disarray. And Wendy just inherited the job 2 months ago, but it becomes yours. And so it is very, I'm saddened to say, and I know you've been out of corporate for a while, that, you know, a lot hasn't changed. It really has not. Yeah. And it's a reflection of the greater society.
It feels like, and again, I'm saying this because I've had what I consider maybe 2 corporate jobs.
Mhm.
And the last one, I was 26, that long ago.
Mhm.
So it feels like for a lot of specifically Black women, they go into corporate and it's like, it's an unsaid thing that we already know. There's only going to be one person. I was the only Black manager in my last corporate job on my whole floor. And it was maybe 500 people on that floor. I'm the only Black manager and I'm 26.
Yeah.
And it feels as though when people get to those positions or they get to probably higher than the position I was in, but a director or whatnot, that they are apprehensive about pulling someone up with them. They feel like, no, I could be pulling up my own competition
Sure.
later. What do you think about that?
Well, that's still a reality too, that happens. Yeah, see, not much has changed except for the clock, the time still ticking on the clock and the calendar. We're moving the pages on the calendar. That still small, major and still small numbers, but major inequities in terms of representation of people of color. Then it gets even smaller with women, the whole dynamic. Well, we do have minorities, so they may be Caucasian women, and because they're falling into that, you know, that their gender is female, yeah, then they're able to check the box. And then sadly, what I'm also discovering, I also do some DEI work, and I've seen this happen. And so you've now noticed that the trend is now changing back. The pendulum is swinging again. The murder of George Floyd that we saw on our, live occurred a couple years ago. And then everybody was, oh, diversity, this and inclusion and social equity. And now you hear whispers. And then in
Oh, yeah.
some states, very deliberate acts of, oh, we're trying to shut this all the way down. Yeah. So then, then the being invisible intensifies. And so if I'm already sitting in that seat, it's a very coveted seat. They've made me feel like I'm the special one because I'm the only one.
Mm, mm, mm. I want you to, because there are plenty of women in the audience who are in corporate and they're also entrepreneurs. And for some people, I tell them, you don't need to quit your job. That's a good job, actually. I think, and if you love it, you might want to keep that job.
Right.
But what should she do in that situation where she can't find a mentor? No one's really interested in mentoring her. And she's kind of new. And it doesn't seem like if someone has gotten to a position, they don't necessarily want to pull her up. Like, what should she do in corporate? Like, what are her steps?
Yeah, so you have to look outside your circle. Don't because you feel confined does not mean you are confined. And with social media, and I've given you said this to you when we were in Italy. How did we get to learn who you are? And it was through social media. It was through Instagram. And so you can find your mentor is out there. It may require a little work, and oftentimes it's just with a simple ask. And so whether it's LinkedIn and it's following an individual, whether it's going to a conference and it's just making that ask, can you assist me? And we're both big avid readers. Mentor doesn't always have to come with someone that I'm speaking with either on a weekly or a monthly basis. It could be that informal mentor who may not even know me, but I'm following them, whether it be on social media or whether it be YouTube or whether I'm reading their books. So there are many platforms in which to establish that relationship and learn from that individual, but they're out there. I don't want anyone to ever feel discouraged. And then you need to have many mentors in your life, and coaches and sponsors. So, and it's just, again, if Christy can't provide me what I need in terms of that specialization regarding my career path, I know Christy knows quite a few influential and powerful people who can help me. And maybe it's just making that ask, but you have to open your mouth and you have to ask. So don't feel confined in that thought.
You have to identify. One thing that I found, Dr. Wendy, working with women for 13 years, is that sometimes the women are petrified to make a decision. Because some sort of way, somewhere in our upbringing, and a lot of us have it, it's like we've been taught once you go down a path, you can't pivot, you can't turn around, and you for sure can't be seen making what we call a mistake. Everybody else can make mistakes, have lessons, pivot or whatnot, but we can't make any. So it makes them not want to go down any path because they're not sure if it is like the perfect or the right path, So I feel like them understanding, okay, I could have a plan on how I want to go through corporate if I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Do you find that so many of them don't know? I've had corporate people who worked on my team, like I said, talk to them this month, they want to be in law. Talk to them the next month, they want to be in beauty. Like they could be all over the place. What do you think?
Well, I think we're, picking on society today, but isn't that very much how society is? It's just, one day we're doing this, one day the focus on this is on this. And then media is constantly in our face and it's saying, this is the hot new thing. So we've been conditioned to think that, okay, this is the road I'm supposed to go down because somebody said it, or is this the road? And it changes instead of getting quiet and discovering what makes us happy and giving ourselves permission to be happy and starting that process. And also extending ourselves some grace and patience. When you first posed the question about making decisions, I think women have a problem with that because, Chrissy, the reality is we are making decisions for everybody else on a regular basis. Everybody. And so we don't put ourselves as a priority to say, what decision am I going to make for you today, Wendy, Christy, Eric, whomever the individual may be, because we're so busy doing it for everybody else. And then it's making, I'm removing that from my vocabulary, the finding the time. It's just making the time to do it. If it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, inevitably it's going to increase, but you've got to be intentional with that and being patient with yourself. And I hear you say this all the time. You're not going to have everything that you need, all the information, all of the resources, but just simply work with what you can, because the audience doesn't know. Whatever you're giving them oftentimes, make sure that it's packaged well. You know what it is that you're trying to present to them. You're trying to connect with them. They don't know that everything around me is mayhem and chaos.
And
yeah. Unless you tell them that.
Well, tell me this. What is the most exciting project you've worked on in the last 2 years in your business?
Yeah, so I've got a couple. So right now, my book is with the editor, and we're going to talk this week. And I know, and it is 101 Career Planning and Executive Present Strategies. And so hoping to do a pre-release, pre-sales Black Friday, and then with the release at the beginning of the year. Yes, ma'am.
Black Friday. Okay.
Yeah, Black Friday. So then that, working on a conference, which is going to be on executive presence. And what I want people to, not just normalizing the executive presence, but mastering a C-suite demeanor. And that's working on getting that trademark. Yeah.
You just took just words out of my mouth. Like, wait, Dr. Wendy, have you trademarked that? Say that again.
Yeah, mastering C-suite demeanor. Because we have an expectation of anyone that is in that C-suite space. We want them to present themselves in a way that is representative of the organization, of the service, of the products that they're selling. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so with that, that really is that executive presence that we're talking about. But I don't want people to be uncomfortable with that. We want to get to the point of mastering that. And it's a continuous process, but being intentional with that. So yes, I am. My one of my favorite coaches says that about the importance of trademarking. I've heard you say that many times. So yes, working on that, and really just proud of some of the clients that have been added to my portfolio. USDA, I've done some work with them and just signed another contract with them. And also just trying to build up that smaller clientele of those, particularly those women who, like myself at one time, can I really do this? And then just grabbing their hands and saying, you absolutely can. Let's get it started.
And I feel like with the recession and just with the way the economy is right now, every person who wants to really have a corporate career needs to get corporate consulting. Get corporate consulting. So, because it's chess to me.
Oh, absolutely. And, I know we're talking about corporate, but, I've spent over 20 years in higher ed. And yeah, there is just, it's chess, 3-dimensional chess some days, 3-dimensional chess. And you can't, it's easy to personalize a lot of stuff. You got to go in there with a thick skin. You have to, and then some days you're just going to say, I give up. I can't, I'm giving up today. I'm walking away from it. and then get refreshed, recalibrate, and then go back in it. But just be prepared for anything. The reality is that can be very exhausting. So then it's important to know who you are. And as I say to a lot of clients, you are the CEO of, but that's just an aspect of your life. Don't let that be your identifier solely, because it can be debilitating if you think along those lines.
Well, tell me this, Dr. Wendy. Tell me what is one book that has totally changed your life, and then two books that you would tell a young lady, whether she be in corporate business, but two books that you would suggest for her to read.
Oh my gosh. Ooh, that's a tough question. So one that I always recommend, I'm turning around because I have it over here, is The Personal Touch by Terry Williams. And I give this, you have to write this one, get that one. She's to me, she's like the queen of executive presence, design, but more importantly, what I've always been impressed with her, she started off in PR, and then transitioned over into the mental health and wellness space because she started having some challenges with depression. But it just has mastered the art form of building relationships and what it will yield you. So she has a marvelous story about how she connected with Eddie Murphy and how she went to an event, saw him, and just made up in her mind, he's going to be my client, and how she pursued him. Yeah, so there wasn't a film that he didn't produce, act in. She was sending him a note. Congratulations. I heard you got this award. I heard you have a new addition to your family. Congratulations on that. And over time, she was very intentional. It paid off. And he called her and said, I want you, to be my PR agent. So I love this book for many, many, many reasons. Another book that I find myself going back to is Don't Knock the Hustle. And it's about the whole corporate space and the games and the shenanigans that happen on a daily basis, and how you have to, see it a mile coming and then prepare yourself in terms of how you're going to respond. Don't let it consume you. And then I think you said two or three, but the other one that I find myself going to is Message to the People by Marcus Garvey.
Okay. Now, why that one?
So, that one, we, again, back on society, and I'm always, when I feel like, I'm just exhausted, you just get exhausted by people defining you by your gender and your race. And so I go back to that one to say, they may be defining you, but understand why they're attempting to define you, because there's just so much power in you. And so many great shoulders and generations that you stand on. And so it's just my confidence booster that I go to from time to time. And I think I was introduced to it probably over some 30 some years ago.
That is a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
So what are some parting words that you would want to leave with our listeners on Dr. Wendy, on these next 12 months, 2024? What do you want to leave her with?
Yeah. So just make time to discover who you are as an individual, that understand you have been bestowed just bountiful gifts, that as long as we walk this life's journey, we are discovering what those gifts and talents, but we do a disservice if we don't discover what those gifts and talents are and then gift them to the rest of the world. That's going to require some work. I tell my clients, and I would tell the person in 2024, if they came to me, you deserve everything your heart believes that you deserve. Yeah. And so let's make that happen for you. as it relates to whatever career path it is that you decide that you want to pursue, whether you're 40, whether you're 55, whether you're 18, know that it's achievable, know that there are going to be some challenges, know that there are going to be some obstacles, but you can conquer all of those. And let's start that knowing that that is going to be a reality for you. Let's arm ourselves. Let's equip ourselves to be the very best. Let's behave as if we're already in the C-suite, mastering that demeanor and understanding the elements of executive presence, whatever industry you're in. It's not just, IT, or it's not just a healthcare field. There are some expectations that people are going to have of you, just as you would have of them. And so let's work to bring those to fruition successfully.
Well, Dr. Wendy, it was wonderful